Did you feel like there's a lot of pressure with that, or did you actually
Oh
feel
yeah.
like it was a gift?
Oh yeah. I think a lot more of pressure than anything. Pressure in itself from my parents really, not necessarily knowing, not speaking the language either, which was a difficult task. But having an older sister and her, excelling and doing very well as well, and them requiring that assistance, there was a lot of pressure to make sure things were done right, things were done accurate, and detailed. So yeah, you could definitely say that. But now looking back on us having this conversation, I could say that it was a gift as well.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of experiences and have been garnered from.
You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. And I have an amazing guest today, which I feel rare to say now because of all the episodes that have been very solo or repurposed from a conference. But Victor, who is one of the co-founders and managing director of Tangy Management based out in Miami. So, Victor, I'm super excited to have you, my friend, to join me on the podcast. We did get to meet in person before this whole hey, let's do an episode together conversation
Right.
happened. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
But welcome to the show and excited to have you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Well, thank you for having me. We did meet a couple of months back, and it was a great intro. That's where we created the friendship, and I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Well, I think our initial conversation in Miami kind of is what struck that, I need to get this guy on the podcast just because I think you have a really interesting story, but you're very like your passion for hospitality in general really does shine through. Everyone that I've talked to that knows you has not spoken nothing but like great, amazing things.
Well, thank
So
you.
yeah, so you come very highly recommended
Great.
in the industry. So I would love to hear just kind of where does everything begin for you? Where does this one passion for hospitality, but what was your first exposure into what we call, short-term rentals and
Yeah.
hotels and all this other stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. This beautiful world that we call hospitality. It's I listen to your podcast, and we actually share a lot of things in common. We have a background, like most of us in hospitality, specifically in the hotel world. So, right from the beginning, I started my first job ever was actually in a luxury hotel in the driving range because it was a golf resort. So
Okay.
my first job ever was just picking up golf balls, having clients, you know, uh, happy and guest happy and assuring that they have everything they need. I was playing baseball all my life. So I was, an athlete growing up. I really wanted to pursue that. Then injuries happen. Like, most athletes, I'm sure the story is common with most.
Yeah.
And then I had to, kind of refocus into really what I was doing or what I wanted to do. And I really like hospitality. I always thought, I love people. I like, helping people and getting things done and assisting in any way I can. So I said, I think this is for me. I'm going to give it a shot. That was about, that was when I was 16. I am 29 now. So that was a good 14, 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
right then and there, my first job was at PBX, which I'm sure you're probably familiar. It's a,
Oh yeah.
that,
The phone operator.
oh yeah. So that's really where I felt the hospitality, skills setting in. Mostly a lot of questions, a lot of requests, and people interested in either staying in the hotel, et cetera, or, having to transfer them to other places. It's really where I honed down, the verbiage of the hospitality, the yes, sir, the yes, man, the absolutely. And that's,
My
um, you
pleasure.
know, and then my pleasure. Yeah. Very strict on those, especially coming from a luxury hotel. And that's really where the passion started. From there, I moved on to front of house. So I was working as a front desk agent for some time. I moved as a supervisor, and that's when I started growing. I moved as a supervisor for the front of house, which is basically was managing all of LA and then also the Belmont. After that, I wanted to continue growing. I had really a dream of becoming a general manager and learning as much as I could while I was in the hotel. And they started up a new department called attaché. So basically, it's a really fancy word for VIP services. So it's the
Okay.
first time, yeah, it's the first time that hotels had these services, and I had the pleasure to work with one of my mentors, and I love her. Her name is Charlotte Rosenau. She still works at the hotel that I'm speaking of. And she basically, tasked me the opportunity to be able to open this new department up.
Mhm.
We were able to set up, a lot of VIP arrivals. We were able to set up a lot of cool and neat things for guests arriving, and that's really where the the switch for me turned on, because one thing was servicing guests and assisting in any requests or anything they need, at, settling any disputes, etc. But then, the thinking ahead, being proactive. And when these VIPs were coming, we were getting more acquainted. It's a little bit of more of a personal relationship with these VIP guests, because we want to, surprise them. Maybe when they get here, their favorite I don't know, their favorite water is a Fiji water. We'll have that there. Their daughters, favorite treats, etc. And we'll do a lot of neat and cool things like that. The hotel that I was referring to is the Trump National Doral here in Miami.
Okay.
So we also had a lot of cool setups and cool things that we were doing for the family, for the Trump family itself.
Mhm.
So we started the department, went really well. I loved it, but again, my curiosity was still intact. I wanted to,
Yeah.
to expand and see what else was out there. So a neat opportunity came about for sales. So that's
Yeah.
when I moved into the sales department. I was a leisure coordinating manager for the department. Basically, I had three golf sales and also leisure sales managers that I was assisting and coordinating once their guests arrived to the property. So very similar to the VIP service, but now there's a component of the selling portion.
Yeah.
So with, doing a tour around the property, also maintaining and creating that connection. And then, seeing what their needs are as they're coming in with 100, members and groups. And sometimes, most of these groups, their needs are different. So
Yeah.
then and there, we're doing a lot of coordination. And again, that's an even bigger switch from VIP service, because now I'm creating not only, a relationship with VIPs, but now I'm creating a relationship, a forever relationship, really, because this was more in a personal environment, and a lot of people that I still communicate with to this day. So, that really kind of drove the passion through. So from then, uh, there was a bit of change in the hotel, and that's when, right when Trump began running for president, and a lot of things were changing around. And I knew if I ever wanted to, exceed and grow, seeing what's out there, not only what's in our bubble and our hospitality world, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that, seeing what else
Yeah.
is out there. Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, the curiosity hit again, and that's when um, an interesting opportunity came about, and it's
Mhm.
with Steve Turk, which you're familiar with, and that's our buddy. He's actually my partner now, Tangy's partner, and he opened up a staffing company
Mhm.
that was running successfully for a couple of years. They needed a staffing manager. That basically they were staffing different positions for all hotels around here in South Florida. So he offered me the position itself, and I loved it. That's when I was able to get into different hotels, learn how different procedures were done in different hotels. Not every hotel is very similar. We're
Yeah.
working with tons of luxury hotels here in Miami, and staffing anything from like waiters all the way to front office managers, etc. So and really that was the first touch of the entrepreneur lifestyle and small business and startup really, kind of started for me. And that's where, again, going back to me always being curious, I really started loving that. And I started asking Steve a lot of questions, a lot of finance questions. I started asking him a lot of, business question and sales and closing deals, etc. And I think he saw that and he noticed, I wanted to, when I first saw in the future, I wanted to probably, you know, dabble into that myself as well. And then that's where the vacation rental portion kind of kicked off and started. That's where my interest garnered from Airbnb and for Verbo, etc.
I was to say
So
before we jump into
yeah,
that, I wanna kind of pull
please.
some pieces apart and just kind of dive into a little bit more. Um, it's very fascinating. Like you're 100% right. Like we do have a ton of similarities when it comes to our backgrounds. And um, for you, you said the switch really kicked off in the VIP service, department when you started that. What was that switch for you? Was it kind of giving you that entrepreneurial environment to kind of create a brand new department? So it wasn't like being handed to you of, here's our SOPs, here's this, here's that. Like you guys had to pretty much create this from scratch. So what was that switch for you that really kind of triggered this? Like, I freaking love this. Like, I don't want to do like, I don't want to go into any other space or industry.
Absolutely.
What was
Right.
that switch?
It was definitely when I had that freedom. They gave me the keys basically to go off and create a department, start a team, and really when I started seeing everything evolve and all of our planning and all of our strategies becoming what they are now, it's really where when I saw that and I really started loving, you know, having my own team, having that freedom and that creativity. That's where that sparked. I love everything and every aspect of that position. It's really one of the those growth positions that really kicked off everything. That position in itself, we had templates from other hotels. They had Trump in Chicago, in Vegas, etc. So we were able to build off of that template. But here, in Miami, where it's a completely different clientele, as you could
Nice.
imagine. Miami, it's much different than other states, so the expectation is completely different.
Yeah,
So being able to be creative with that was one of its own.
I love that. And I guess tell us about Tangy. So getting into the start of Tangy, getting to meet Steve, who's now your partner in this business. Shout out to Steve Turk all the time. But I was gonna say for you, now that you're in this environment, right? Like short-term rentals and hotels, they have one of the same thing, which is hospitality at the core, right?
Right,
But the infrastructure from operations to technology and a bunch of other things are a little bit different.
right.
So what did you carry over from your experience at like what I guess maybe big takeaways from your starting career um, that really carried it over into like the brand and how you guys operate and present yourselves. Is there anything in particular that you're like, if I didn't learn this, maybe Tangy wouldn't be as successful, or maybe we wouldn't be where we are today based off of a core learning along the way?
Of course, yeah. And you said it yourself. I say to a lot of people, we're basically managing a hotel. Just the only difference is the properties are not the same, and everything is spread it out.
Mhm.
Basically, it falls into the same category in a sense. The core, I think the core experience and learning experience that I gathered from the hotel definitely was a lot of processes. So a lot of, creating standards in place, that goes from anything from the cleaning to how we communicate with guests to how we handle, complaints or any requests from guests specifically. Those processes was basically, copied and pasted onto what we're doing here. And that's what has created, a successful operations for us in the company. And everything flows a lot better. As you can imagine, if we have to go to a property, 10, 20 miles away, we want to make sure that the guests have any requests for that property. We want to make sure that, we have something central that our team can go and pick up any items that the guests are requesting. If there is a guest complaint, we have steps and procedures on how those are handled. Usually they're finished with a warm, personal touch, a little gift as an apologies, and that really stems from a hotel,
Mhm.
and basically where all of that was learned.
What's the biggest thing you've learned outside of it that weren't you never learned in hotels? What was the vacation rental, exposure? What happened to you going in, saying like, okay, you're 100% right. This is the way we looked at it too, is you know, we're starting a hotel company basically. They're
Basically,
spread out
right?
and no property is going to be exactly the same floor
Exactly.
plan or design. But um for you guys, what was a big vacation rental learning that you maybe didn't expect or never learned in the hotel side of things?
Right. So I think one of them that really, caught my attention right as soon as we're starting is a relationship with the owners themselves. So I never really in the hotel had to deal with, direct owner of the properties. Yes, in a service level, yes, definitely did. But that was, the managing director and the general manager that held that relationship. So now, the focus on an owner itself is it's completely caught me kind of by surprise in a sense because the owners, each owner has a different expectation, each owner has a different need. So when you're managing 40, 50 properties and we have individual owners, that relationship is really important. I like to tell them that this is not more, you're not hiring a management company, you're hiring a partner. It's really that's what we want to do. But that relationship, which just stems a little bit as well from that customer service, ensuring that they're happy and their expectations are met. There's a lot of different personalities that you have to overcome and deal with. But that's big surprise and something that I didn't, necessarily learn from the hotel side, that I
Yeah.
learned here on the vacation rental side.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you guys manage that today now with all the personalities and remind me how many properties? I know you guys have been growing so much. So remind me like how many properties are you guys at now and how do you manage owner relations now that you guys have grown
Of
pretty
course.
significantly in the last few years?
Good, great question. Yes. So the right now we're at 42 properties. We started back in May 2018. So we're at 4 years under our belt. We're growing as we go. We're refocusing more. Before we were doing a lot of residential,
Yeah.
and we're doing a lot of condos. But we noticed condos maybe it's condominiums or not our niche. We're gonna really rely on the residential homes, and now even more so multifamilies. And that's really where it has taken off in the multifamily area of it. So a lot of investors, during the pandemic and all of the markets and all of the changes, a lot of investors are really interested in the Miami market. And we're working with several. And this has been a relationship that started, for a year and a half already. So and we've been working with these investors and owners, um, purchasing multifamily homes, purchasing and doing full renovations of them as well. And then also boutique style homes as well, or boutique style hotels. So we're working right now with actually a 14 unit property very close to our local area here in Coral Gables, if you're familiar with it. So we're working on a. You're familiar with it?
I would say I'm not.
No,
If you
you got
get
to check it
maybe,
out.
yeah, point me on the map.
Yeah, so it's a little west of like the Brickell area, so really close to
Oh,
Little Havana and Calle Ocho. So those are areas that are really growing. So that 14 unit, we're completely involved in the whole process of it, and we're basically from renovation to furniture. We're taking that project on. We're hopefully opening up in December, so I can't wait for that. It's going
wow,
to be really
very
great.
cool.
Yeah, after we're thinking, we have expected after December, basically 2023, we're going to be at around 55 to 60 units. So that's an exponential growth in a couple of months. But again, working with that from already a year and a half with the owners that we partnered with. So that's taken on, and that's really hopefully where we continue to drive and go through the relationship with the owners, has maintained with the growth. And obviously now you need to, it's the hiring process, and
Yeah,
getting the right personnel in. So they're used, the owners are used to one person and communicating with one person. But now, hey, This is going to be your account manager. Let's go ahead and set up a monthly meeting so we could sit down, we can have the conversations, anything that you see or anything that you need us to, to improve on. We can have that conversation there. That's like a big factor
Yeah.
in the relationship as well. And then building, that trust and that communication as well. Because a lot of our owners, they don't even, live in the state.
Mm.
So having that trust in them is really important to us.
100%. And kind of said it better myself. For you, what do you think makes the Tangy brand so special? Because like I know that it's special. I've gotten to see you guys in action. I see the properties you bring on. Like I know you guys are special. But what do you feel like internally, if you could share just like maybe one thing that you've seen within Tangy that you haven't seen in other property management companies or even just like local operators, what would you say that would be?
Yeah, we have basically a weekly meeting on that question exactly, and we want to focus on two things: adding value to our guest experience and our guest stay, and then also two, building a core team, a great team that also has a hospitality background. I
Yeah.
think that's huge when you bring in a team that has that experience, that have worked in hotels, restaurants, etc. It goes above and beyond, with what you can do and what the guest experience is going to be like. And then touching on the adding value to our guests. We want to create a different experience for them, not necessarily, have heads in beds,
Yeah.
as one would say, but we want to add, a certain different experience, a certain different element. So we're working right now with multiple companies, one of them being Roombox, and shout out to them. We just partnered and started working with them. So basically adding, amenities or adding items in the refrigerator or groceries pre-arrival of our guests. That's an added factor. If we have homes that don't have pools, we send them a discounted code for the guests to be able to book a cabana in one of our local luxury hotels. Where we have a dog sitting service as well. So
Wow.
if the guest is bringing pets, we want to make sure that, hey, we have someone that can come walk your pets, et cetera. And then pre-hands, any concierge service, rental of baby cribs, setting up a yacht experience or anything like that. We want to help them. I always say, never want to never want to tell the guest no.
Yeah.
We want to find a solution for them and give them an alternative. If something can't be done, we can find an alternative, and that's really where our focus is, and where a little bit of the difference between other competitors around.
I love that. And you touched on something that I was going to tie into a question because you said how can we add more to the guest experience?
Right.
And I think you and I talked about
Yeah.
on our pre-chat more of a, I think vacation rentals, even hotels, we could even tie them both into the same, I think, conversation is that there's such a heavy focus on nightly rate, right? Like we have to get
Right.
occupancy and we have to get a good ADR and have good RevPAR. Like that, those three numbers or three acronyms are usually the ones that we focus on the
Right.
most. Recently, I would say probably since COVID, we've all been looking for what are more sustainable ways outside of nightly rate that we can drive revenue and not just to drive revenue like heads and beds and all this other stuff and really be like greedy with money for every second the guest is trying to do something. We want to get a dollar from them
Right.
but actually adding some revenue that property management companies like yours, like mine, like anybody's can actually have outside of nightly rate because we only get what 25-30% of that.
Of course.
So 25-30%, like sounds great, but for a growing company, there definitely needs to be more streams. So what do
Absolutely.
you guys do? How do you focus on in-stay revenue? What does that look like? I think you guys are in a perfect market and the way you're describing everything from, the cabana to dog services, all that, like
Right.
that's your guys are in a perfect area for it. So I guess maybe like, talking about your strategy or you're thinking about in-stay revenue compared to just nightly rates and how that enhances the guest experience.
Of course, yeah, and sometimes, not even the guests themselves, when we have these reservations and book these reservations, not necessarily are we looking to make an extra dollar off of them. There's a lot of opportunities when you're managing residential properties. We have a lot of owners that, hey, will tell us, hey, I've never had time to do this. Now it's perfect time. We're making a lot of money, or we're doing, really well with the short-term rental. I want to go ahead and renovate the bathroom. I want to go ahead and add a new fence. So we strategically, when we're, in the building process, we strategically hired handymen
Mm,
and hired maintenance staff that are basically, well-rounded and can wear many caps. Not only can our handyman, fix general items, but they can also, run and drop off items for the guest or assist in our housekeeping. So uh, when our owners say, hey, we want to add a fence or we want to renovate the bathroom, that right there is a switch for us where I said, hey, we have these great talented men and women that are helping with us in our company. Why not, have them do the renovation? Why not have them do or build out the fence? And then we can add on a couple extra dollars on top of that on the work and the materials and the labor itself. So that's
yeah,
one way that we were able to strategically, you know,
smart.
generate a little bit more over the state itself. But that's one way that we've been able to see a big growth with as far as like financials and revenue.
That's really cool. I didn't even think about that. That's like completely outside the guest experience. It's like,
Completely,
yeah,
completely.
100%. Okay. That's really, and then after those renovations, you're actually probably able to charge a better nightly rate because again, you're getting a nicer product.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
very
we're
smart.
we're yeah, we're sitting, that starts like right before we even do the renovations. We're sitting with the owners and letting them know, hey, mile from here, you have the exact same property that looks, much more renovated and much more updated
Yeah,
than we are. Look at the rate, look at their occupancy, and that way, they can see the clear picture, and it's not just coming from us.
for
Let's
sure.
get this, and that's where we're headed to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's so smart. And a lot of owners don't like to listen, even if you show them. But yeah, the fact that you can be patient and continue to drive that conversation, it's always a perk.
Right.
Um, I want to dive into something a little bit more on the personal side from you. Something you said a couple times throughout the episode that I wrote down and circled next to your name because I think it really defines a lot of your character. But you keep saying I've always been curious. Always been curious and want to learn more. Where do you think that drives from? Where do you think that comes from? Was it, maybe dive into a little bit of your childhood? Like, what was your childhood like? Were you always a curious kid? Were you quiet? Were you outgoing? Did your mom or dad or anyone in particular kind of spark that curiosity inside of you when you were younger? Like, kind of, yeah, unpack that a little bit for us.
Right. Oh, great question. So a little bit into my childhood. I was actually originally born in Cuba. So we immigrated from Cuba here to United States into Miami when I was 5 years old. That obviously, a lot younger, but to anybody coming from a different country, it's a complete culture
Yeah.
shock, and a complete different experience here when you're coming from something to something completely different. Right there, that's I think where more of an experience that I wanted to learn more. I wanted to kind of garner what basically the United States is all about. What is the experience like here? A lot of times when I was younger, I was really into sports and I was really social. I had a lot of friends, and really it was all about like sports, and in that aspect. But my parents drove me to always excel and do the best I can at anything that I did. The curiosity I think stemmed more than likely from my parents not really knowing the country itself or the United States is completely different experience. So I was almost kind of the mediator to them. So a lot of the questions that they would have, that they didn't really know about, I was like, you know what, Dad, I'll help you with that question. I'll find this information out, this and that,
Mm,
and I'll help you guys out. So helping them kind of build into because they came here when I was a lot older than what I was than 5 years old from when I was. So A lot of that came from there, I think, and then also just my willingness to help and to learn. I think learning and being open to learning new experiences and new things really, help your life and really help a lot of what you do. Things that you learned years ago, you never know, might be of use to you today. So always, saying yes and being open to helping, to learning. I think that's where a lot of it came from.
I was gonna say, I was just writing down too, being the mediator, did you feel like there was a lot of pressure with that, or did you actually
Oh
feel
yeah.
like it was a gift?
Oh yeah. I think a lot more of pressure than anything. Pressure in itself from my parents really, not necessarily knowing, not speaking the language either, which was a difficult task. But having an older sister and her, excelling and doing very well as well, and them requiring that assistance, there was a lot of pressure to make sure things were done right, things were done accurate, and detailed. So yeah, you could definitely say that. And but now looking back on us having this conversation, I could say that it was a gift as well.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of experiences and have been garnered from.
I love that. And the other part I was writing down, you said you have this like learning mindset, right? So like always wanting to be learning, just having a willingness to learn. Was there ever a point when you came to the US and you started, being the mediator and yet you're learning all this stuff? Was there ever a point maybe you were discouraged of okay, I don't want to learn anymore. I just want to take a break, or I don't want to like I'm tired of this like role that I'm playing. Was there ever a kind of a moment in that time where you did question that, and then maybe something that refreshed you back to it in any particular way?
Yeah, good question. So not necessarily that I can think of. I think being growing up here in Miami and local, a lot of your friends and a lot of people here have a very similar story to them. So learning from your peers, and I stem a lot of things back to baseball, and having a lot of discipline and learning a lot from there. I think that was kind of my grounding. If anytime I ever was discouraged, I could always just refocus back into baseball, and practice and kind of get my skills to kind of bring me back into where I needed.
That's good. And now as an entrepreneur, what do you do to ground yourself when you get discouraged, or if you, because growing the way you guys have grown, you're building. I see there's a big difference, and I want to kind of call this different differentiator out for the audience sake. For anyone who's listening and is in the industry, or anyone who's listening and is just new to the industry, there's a big
Right.
difference between Tangy and an Airbnb host who is just doing Airbnb.
Right.
And we've had this conversation on. I've interviewed people on the show that only are on Airbnb. There's nothing wrong with it, but I think there's a big difference when you're creating this brand outside of a platform versus you're creating like you can have the same standards that Tangy has and do it and just be on Airbnb, but the fact that you're creating a name outside of it um, really does make a shift in the whole company. Like there's a big difference, and I just want to call that difference out. But for you guys, as you've grown so quick, you have the standards, you're paying attention to detail, you're doing owner relations properly, you're going above and beyond for guest experience, but then you're also managing, you know,
Right.
fence projects and remodel
Hmm.
projects and doing all this other stuff. So there's a lot going on, and that's just scratching the surface. I'm sure
Right.
behind the scenes, we're not seeing the amount of phone calls and emails and texts and all the other stuff that you're getting. Um, so from an entrepreneur standpoint, what keeps you grounded? What helps you refresh so that way you can continue to have that mindset of always being curious but always learning. Um, I'm always curious to see, what everyone says to a question
Yeah.
like that.
Of course, yeah. I think well the key is balance,
Mm.
right? It's a lot of balance between your personal life and your work life. Having an amazing relationship with your team that you can entrust, your team to be able to basically do what you do on a day to day. and a lot of mentors, a lot of relationships that I built throughout my time. I set myself up to have a lot of friends and have a lot of leaders besides me to help me and guide me through that, and that's extremely important to our growth and what we've done. I've taken a lot of I give a lot of credit also to my wife that when there's a lot of stuff going down, she is my I, I I say she's my ventee. She hears everything. If something were to happen to me tomorrow, I'm sure she can go on and run this puppy without any issue. But finding that balance and having your personal life with your family and and spending that quality time and being able to just shut it off and disconnect is a really big thing as an entrepreneur. You're always kind of running on 100 and you always have the back of your mind, you're always thinking of something that's going on. But that's really now that we've grown and we've been able to add so many team members, I've been able to kind of take a step back and see things operate in its way with all the standards and the procedures that we put in place. So that's really important.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long did it take you to be able to turn it off when you're not
Oh,
working?
I say
Did it
the
take a while?
first. It took a while. It took a while. That's I would say a good 3.5 years. I was just me and two other team members that were running and doing the whole operations and putting the show together. So I was heavily involved. Doing everything that you could imagine when it comes to managing a property. So 3 years into it, finally I've been able to sit back and now more than anything monitor. And like I tell them all the time, I'm your support. I'm not scared to grab a toolkit and go out and try to fix it and do my best and go on YouTube and learn what can I do and what are the remedies to fix something. So I don't mind getting my hands dirty, but really it took a while to get at this point for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially with a 24/7 business. That's the hardest part
Oh
too, I
yeah,
think. It's not just check in and check out, it's check in, and then every minute they until they check out, and
oh yeah,
even after and before booking. So it's a constant journey, I think, with our business. And um, but props to you, man. Like, I think there's so many entrepreneurs out there, and I can even say I'm guilty of this, where you get to a point where you build a company
right,
and you don't properly build the team. Like, you built a
right.
company,
Oh
but really you built a job. And now the team part, like, that's the hardest aspect. Um, Especially like finding the right people that stay around for a while rather than just like constantly hiring for the same position over and over and over
oh yeah,
again. So props to you,
yeah.
man, for being
Thank
able
you,
to
thank you.
like really,
Yeah.
really do that.
And I credit also a great book, and, for anyone who's listening also, and that's in that process with what you're talking about. This book called Traction, which I'm sure
Mm,
you've probably
yes.
heard of it. So that book really,
EOS, baby.
oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that book really, put things into perspective and really kind of dumbed everything down. You like I said, you wear so many different hats, but that book gives you perspective and lets you kind of put margins and departments to every aspect that you're doing. It was a really, really big help for me, honestly.
No, I love that. If you had one piece of advice for anyone in the short-term rental industry or hospitality in general, from your experience, from what you're seeing now, um, you know, what would that piece of advice be for anyone, whether they're experienced or new?
Right. So I think, the openness, what I kind of, talked about earlier, the openness, to learn or to adapt and to take in, different opportunities. Hospitality is not for everyone. There's a lot of patience, involved in it, as you know, Will.
Yeah,
So, you're stepping to the hospitality world, definitely come in with that, the openness to learn, and the patience to be able to deal with a lot of different personalities and different situations that you're dealt with, and all of those experiences you'll see 10, 5, 6 years, whatever it may be after down the line, uh, you'll see that same situation will come into play, and you'll say, I remember this happened like 3 years ago, and I knew how I dealt with it, And I remember I made that mistake 3 years ago. This time I know I'm going to deal with it differently this way. And you never know. It's, you're in those situations that will be able to help you in the future. So I think, those would be my best advice for someone trying to get into the hospitality world.
I love it. Well, where can people find you if they want to connect? Obviously, we're going to put everything in the show notes, but if you had one spot you could send anyone to that's listening right now, that they could easily grab off of Apple or Spotify, where would you take them?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely LinkedIn. I'm big on LinkedIn. You could definitely find me. Oh yeah, LinkedIn is the big one. I used to be heavy into Instagram, and we still are, but it promotes a lot more on the branding side. But
Mm.
definitely, if you want to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, my full name is Victor Feria, and you can find me. You can find me very easily through there.
Yeah, and I'll make sure we put everything in the show notes, and it's
Awesome.
easy click and go. Um,
Perfect.
But Victor, seriously, man, super appreciative of you joining the show and sharing your story and going down, the personal rabbit hole and then also the professional rabbit hole. It's always fun to kind of grab, um, different aspects of entrepreneurs
Of
in our
course.
space. And I think you have a great story. But dude, I'm super excited to see you in Miami at the Book Direct show here in just a couple
I'll be
weeks.
there.
So I can't wait
I'm
to
excited.
shake your hand and have a drink one more time. So it's gonna be great.
Absolutely will. Thank you so much for that. I'm looking forward also to seeing you over here, and it's going to be a fun time. I appreciate it.
Can't wait.
And thank you again for having me on the show.
Of course. All right, Slick Talkers, you heard it here first. Make sure you check out everything in the show notes, like and subscribe to everything that Victor has talked about. I'll even put a link in the show notes to Traction, the book. It's a great book. Highly recommend it. And we'll see you all again next week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.